In a previous episode, I discussed my Roku remote solution for remotely starting Jellyfin from my telly and then having Jellyfin restart the app on my telly so that it loads from the server. And this was all working fine, but it requires some commands to run when my Jellyfin server starts up. And as discussed, I've recently moved my Jellyfin server to a new box. When this was running on my micro server, I used an @reboot rule in the system cron tab to achieve this, which will run a command on boot, or more specifically, when the cron daemon launches, as when your machine's booting. And that did what it needed to. When the machine started up, it would trigger the script to send the commands. And the other thing it would do was send a message to my phone via NTFY just to tell me that the server had started up, which helped me particularly early on with debugging the whole sending away conlan. That would then tell me that it had sent it, and then at the other end it would tell me that it had woken up, so I knew that everything was working.
And this all sounds perfectly normal. Yes.
However, I moved all of this over to my desktop, which I'm now using on my Jellyfin server, and it wasn't working.
Okay.
Everything else seemed to be going okay, but it wasn't running the commands. So I did some debugging, added some stuff to the scripts to see what was going on, and found the scripts were running. They just weren't doing what they were meant to. So I had a bit of a think, what's different about this machine compared to the micro server?
Please, sir. Please, sir. Please,
Go
sir.
on.
Is it the environment?
No. Would you like another guess before I tell you?
Yes. Is it the shell?
No.
No. Is it the isolation of System D?
No.
Oh, okay. Is it the change between Debian and Ubuntu?
No, though, they were both on Ubuntu.
Oh, okay.
Man, this is gonna be the longest episode ever. Forget what I said last time.
I tell you what, pause the podcast now, dear listener. Send your answers into show@matters.sh and let's see who got it right.
Or indeed leave a comment. Yes.
The difference was DHCP.
What?
So on the micro server, it had a static IP address.
Okay.
But on my desktop, it doesn't. And what's happening is the cron daemon is starting up before it's got its IP address via DHCP. Therefore, the network's not available. Therefore, it can't do either of the things I've asked it to, both of which require the network.
Right. We should have got this because, in the 5 things that are, always go wrong in computing, like it's always DNS, naming things, race conditions. And is it on and is it turned on? All those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I needed was a way of not running commands as soon as the machine booted, but a way of running commands as soon as the network became available. So I did some hunting around and I discovered a directory at etc/network manager/dispatcher.d.
I feel like if you had some kind of dependency-based init system, like Upstart, for example,
This is madness, Alan.
Yeah, I know.
You can do it with System D as well.
You can. Yeah. But what this allowed me to do was take the scripts I had and drop them into a directory and have it run them, rather than having to faff around writing System D units and loading them and unloading them and
ain't nobody got time for that, really.
Exactly.
No.
So what you get with this is, you have a directory. There are some subdirectories for specific network events, but not all of them. I don't really understand. There's like 3 that have a specific subdirectory, but everything else, if you drop a script in dispatcher.d, it will run that script for every event that happens on every network interface. So yeah, all sorts of things happen. It comes up, it goes down, things get set, or before things happen and after things happen. There's all sorts of things you can do. But and interface wise, it includes all of your virtual interfaces as well. So things like loopbacks and Docker bridges and whatever else you've got going on your machine. But I was specifically interested in my one Ethernet interface and when it came up.
So I use the Network Manager dispatcher to run my Am I on a Wireless portal detector. So as the interfaces come up, it makes a request to neverssl.com over HTTP, and then dependent on the HTTP error code it gets back, it then automatically starts the portal, loggerina thing.
Ah, nice.
I've started using text to speech to tell me out loud when things need my attention. And
Does it do it in your voice?
I have had it do it in my voice, and it was extremely irritating. And I find this quite fun because when I walk away from my computer or like some event happens that I'm not expecting, I can have it like say something out loud. It super annoys my coworkers when,
Oh, I didn't mean you meant in an open office. I thought you meant at home.
Well, the weird thing is, like, as soon as you take off the Bluetooth headphones, the audio just reroutes to the speakers at maximum volume. And so,
Does it say your headphones have disconnected?
No, what I have it saying is Wizard needs food badly. And everyone wonders what on earth is going on. So I think you could confuse the rest of the dwellers of your house by having it say things rather than, all this quiet notify stuff. That's boring.
But yeah, the key thing is here that it will run these scripts for every interface and every event. So the script receives the name of the event and the name of the interface it happened on. So if you, like me, you only want it to happen in response to a particular interface coming up, you need to check the arguments and say, if it's not these, then don't do anything, and then have it do what you actually want it to do. Because when it first ran, I was having it send me a flood of notifications because I've got all of these random virtual interfaces. And when anything came up or did anything else, it was telling me that the computer had turned on, which was
Docker
a bit much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, it's really simple and it works really well. So if you need stuff to run when your network comes up or comes down or does other things, then yeah, network manager dispatcher.d is your solution.
I have been forcing myself away from Docker. The honeymoon is over. I'm sick of it. And I think it's time I embraced my love of LexD again.
Oh, I see. I was going to say, I thought you'd sort of completely bought into the whole container lifestyle. So it's not containers are out, it's specifically Docker. Why? What's happened? What has caused this friction in your relationship with Docker?
This feels like a therapy session.
Well, I'm worried for you.
That's what we're here for, man.
Thanks. I appreciate you. So this came about because I remembered how much I loved LexD, and recently I've been updating snaps. I've told you about that in previous episodes. And I use LexD a lot to build some of the snaps locally. Now, when I build them, I generally just use LexD as a tool. And I forgot over the last few years of using Docker a lot, just how lightweight LexD is, how much I actually quite enjoy using it, and creating and destroying containers is quick and easy, and it's quite familiar to me. So I had a problem that I wanted to solve, and my usual tool these days would be Docker, and I decided, no, I will resist this urge, and I will use LexD instead.
Is there something you wanted to do which Docker wouldn't have been suited to, or did you just want to see if you could do it with LexD?
I don't think Docker's not suited to it because I know other people have solved the problem I want to solve with Docker. I just wanted to re-exercise my LexD muscles that had kind of atrophied a little bit because I haven't used it for a while. It's a weird metaphor, I know. So what I really wanted to do was spin up, I guess, what you would call dev containers. So containers in which there are developer tools installed. Now, the primary reason I wanted to do this was because some of those developer tools are a bit chatty on the network. Some of them want to look at files all over the place. And I also wanted to isolate one project from another. And just having two separate directories on the same machine wasn't enough. I wanted a little bit more isolation. In future, I might want firewalling and other things, but initially, all I wanted was just some way of confining the thing that I was doing. And I initially started by just launching a LexD container And when I launched it, I thought, well, this is not suitable because I can't see the folders on my host. And like of all of them, I need at least the folder that's got the source code in.
Right.
And so I
Yep.
thought, well, I don't want to have to manually map into the LXD container the folder that's on the outside on the host. I want that to be simplified. And so I started having all these requirements that were more than just start a LXD container. They were start the container, install all these things, and. And so there was a bunch of stuff that it needs to do. And so I thought, well, I'll write a script to automate this.
So the sorts of things you might put in a Docker file, for example.
Yeah, exactly. But faster and smaller
Okay.
and with LXD. Yeah, exactly. So what I did was I started off creating a shell script, and this had some feature creep. As is my want. It started off with, like I say, just like launching the container and installing some stuff. And I thought, well, there are some things I sometimes want in the container, and sometimes there are other things I want in the container. Let's say, for example, I'm developing a Rust-based application, which is rare. So let's choose Go instead. Let's say I'm developing a Go-based application. I would want the Go runtime in there and maybe some other bits and bobs. And not a lot, just a few bits and bobs. And whatever other tools I need in order to build that application. And so I wanted to be able to have different configurations. And I know I could do all of this with, there are plenty of tools, whether it's Docker or Nix or all these other things. I just wanted to exercise that LXD muscle. And then I realized just how useful this is. It grew, and now it's at a stage where I can launch a container. It will install my common developer tools that I use and configure it in a particular way, and then install all the utilities that I use. So there's some of these like AI agent stuff, some of which are terminal stuff, and some of which are graphical. Like Cursor is one of them. It's a graphical thing that is very much like VS Code. So just think of VS Code. But what I also wanted to be able to do was bring into the container, optionally, access tokens for various services that those tools need.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make that very optional because I have personal accounts for my own stuff on various platforms, and I have work tokens or API keys, for example, for work stuff. And I wanted to be able to easily separate these things. And just creating a directory and launching something wasn't enough. I wanted to be absolutely certain that when I am in this container, it is definitely containing just the tools I need for this job and has access to only the APIs that the API keys for that mode that I'm in. I'm on the weekend. I want to do a bit of like personal development versus during the day at work when I'm doing something else for work. And so I made this thing which launches a container, installs all the stuff, and then takes a snapshot of that and creates a base container. Because initially installing like all of the Rust stuff and the Go stuff and Love2D and all the other bits and bobs and tools takes a while. So it makes a base container. And then from that point onwards, whenever I run the tool, it spawns a new container and it names the container after the folder structure that I'm currently sat in. So if I go to my directory in my home directory called projects foo, and then I launch the container, I will get a brand new container called projects-foo. So it maps to the directory, and I'll be dropped into that container with all the tools available, and the current directory maps to the one directory on the host that I want to allow all the tools to have access to. And I can launch all the other tools I need, graphical or terminal tools, like Claude or Cursor or whatever. And I don't really have to worry about it breaking out of that box that I've put it in. And I get this container that's still there, and I can shut it down or bring it back up again, start and stop it. And I can even have it on a remote machine because like LXD over the network is a thing. So it feels to me a lot more flexible, faster, easier for me to configure than a Docker container. I'm sure we're going to get loads of emails telling me Docker is way more flexible and you're an idiot, Alan. Yeah, I get it. But that's really what I wanted. And I started just with a shell script and it seems to work.
So I do a lot of work with container stuff and have done since leaving Canonical. And as much as I use, containers for things, it's mostly for running things. When it comes to me creating development environments that I want to isolate for the reasons you've just described, maybe you've got incompatible project requirements and things like that, I still use VMs. I love VMs for this stuff, and I haven't got over my VM habit. The one thing that's changed over time is that I tend to use Lima now, which is a project that was originally started for Mac OS, and it stands for Linux Machines. And it's QEMU, but it runs on Linux now, and it's just a way to bootstrap a really thin VM, and it has mechanisms to integrate with Cloud Init to do the things you've just described. Of these are the things that I want. Give me a VM of this OS and stuff this things inside it, and it mounts your home directory read-only inside the VM, and I love it, and I always reach for it.
No, I'm afraid I'm with Alan on this one. I'm containers all the way for development for the same sort of thing, especially PHP development. If you're trying to do PHP with different versions, running all of those on one server side by side becomes a massive headache. So having containers to isolate each site you want with the version of PHP that you want on that site, and then just the code base for that site, is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, I feel like VMs to me feel like Daddy Bear, and Docker feels like Mummy Bear, and LexD containers feel like Little Baby Bear. It's completely capable. It's a fully functioning bear, but it's a lot smaller and faster and a bit more nimble. Do you know what I mean? Now, I started off making this a shell script, and I really quickly outgrew that and decided, stuff this. I'm going to make it a proper big boy application. And so I ported it to Go. And so now it's a Go binary, and I just run that binary. And then it has one argument, which is what's the tool you want to use in the container. And it will then launch a container, as I said, of the name based on the directory you're currently sat in. The idea being that when I want to stop developing that thing, I just exit the container and I go away and do something else. I can shut it down, or I can leave it running, and then whenever I'm sat in that directory and I just run my application again, it jumps me straight back into the container where I left off. There are other things it can do, like snapshots and updates and destroy the thing.
Copy it somewhere else.
Or copy it somewhere else, exactly. I'm mostly going to be doing this on a little ThinkPad that I use for personal stuff. And actually, I've limited myself to Linux because I don't think you can do LXD kind of stuff on Mac OS, which is fine by me because I'm using this on Linux. And then I had to come up with a name because obviously these things have names. And I called it Lyncubate because I use it for incubating new things. And so it's called Lyncubate, as in Linux, incubate. And it seems to work, and I'm quite pleased with it. So I'll make it open source and I'll chuck it in a repo, and I'll put a link in the show notes and people can play with it or tell me I'm doing it wrong and provide me pull requests. Thanks very much. But yeah, it works for me, and it was a nice little reintroduction back into LexD after using Docker for a few years. I'm quite pleased with it. Yeah.
So I think I know the answer to this question based on what you've said, but it sounds like you are back in love with LexD, and this is going to be where you go now when you're looking to do this kind of work.
I think so, other than when I'm at work and I have to use the work computer, which doesn't have LexD. So that's the blocker for that. And I mean, I could use something like multipass, or like you've suggested, using QEMU and tools like that. But I think this is more for personal projects on my ThinkPad and being able to like separate them all out and delineate one from another and have a little bit more control over the applications that are inside that container, and not just let them have, free reign over the file system. And maybe I'll add capabilities to Lyncubate to like more control the firewall and like really limit network access. I don't know. That's not super important to me at the moment, but it could be maybe in the future. We'll see.
I have been creating remote desktops on Wayland, and I'm not talking about that pretend Wayland that you get with GNOME. I'm talking about real Wayland that you get with real Wayland compositors.
Wow.
Sorry, are we gatekeeping Wayland now?
I don't know if no, I think I'm not gatekeeping Wayland. I think GNOME are gatekeeping not Wayland is what's going on. So there's a whole breed now of Wayland compositors available that have all sorts of Wayland protocol extension support, which makes Wayland really quite a rich, interesting environment. And GNOME is either slow or refusing to adopt some of these extensions, so it's not as much fun or creative. So I've left GNOME behind and I've embraced, the alternative compositors for, some of the tiling window managers and the paper window managers and things like that, and some of the re-implementations of classic desktop stuff.
Sorry, did you say paper window managers?
Yes. If you haven't heard of Paper WM, that was a nifty idea, but the best expression of that is a project called Niri, which is a Wayland compositor that has the endless scrolling window manager. So look up Niri, Niri, and it's what I'm using on my laptops now, and it is gloriously good.
It took me a moment, but I've just realized you're wearing a Wayland Yutani Core t-shirt that only our highest tier payers are seeing on the live stream.
Yes, so I'm all in on Wayland these days, and I wanted to solve the remote desktop problem. And there is an easier way to go about doing this. It's a more comprehensive solution. There's a tool called Rust Desk, and you'll never guess it's written in Rust. And it's a remote desktop platform. It's more like a team viewer type thing, a thing you can log into and broker authentication and all of that sort of stuff. So you can do proper workstation provisioning, all of that good stuff. And it's terrific, but it was more than I wanted, because I just wanted to be able to connect from one computer, or maybe my phone or my tablet, to another one on the network. And I wanted to do that just through the browser, because I didn't want to have to deal with extra software.
You say through a browser and from your phone. I've seen your display at work, and I'm just wondering, have you ever tried remote desking from a phone to that like super widescreen display that you have to tilt your head and get neck ache, like turning side to side in order to see all four corners?
The answer to the question is yes, and also the big ones behind me as well, and it works, and I'll explain more. So there are two reasons why I wanted to do this. One is for remote support. So I'm setting up a new laptop for my wife, and she will be running real Wayland. Not that she will know it. She's actually going to be using a Wayfire session that I've put together.
Well, she will know it because she will be listening to this podcast, obviously.
Yeah, she doesn't know what that means. Okay. She doesn't care. She just wants the Windows to work like she expects Windows to work, which is why I've built a solution around Wayfire, because it's a traditional stacking window manager, but it's a composite. It's basically Compiz, but for Wayland is the easy way to describe it. But it's got the other widgets that I use, like Waybar and what have you, to provide that sort of, in air quotes, desktop experience or desktop shell. But then I was thinking, well, how do I log into this? Because it happened whilst I was away recently in the US. There was the inevitable phone call. This doesn't work. I can't print. I can't scan. And so you have to be able to remote in. And I currently use X2Go to do that, to connect to the Ubuntu Mate machine that she's on. But I was thinking to myself, next time I'm away, which is coming up in May, by which time my wife will have a new laptop, how will I deal with this scenario?
You need W to go.
Right, you'd think so, wouldn't you? And also, when I'm not so much when I'm traveling with work, because I have a laptop with me, but when we travel to see family and stuff at the weekends, I only take my iPad with me. and I bought a cheap third-party aftermarket keyboard and trackpad, and it's glorious. I've got the cheapest iPad you can get, and this super cheap aftermarket keyboard trackpad that magnetizes to the bottom of it, and it's brilliant. It's a really good, like in air quotes, laptop, and just enough for when you're traveling. So I wanted it to work from there, but I didn't want to have to deal with apps and nonsense. I just wanted to be able to use the browser. So after a bit of research, I found this magic combination of software that enables me to do this. And it starts with a bit of software called VNC. And I think you can probably work out what the first and second part of that name is all about.
I vaguely remember people providing technical support to people via only Chrome, and Chrome had like a built-in screen sharing remote desktop thing. This must be nearly a decade ago. Is that still a thing, or is that not a thing?
I don't know, but I did use it for doing remote support with family, where I can't quite remember the flow, but you did a thing and it made a number pop up on their screen, and you would read the number to them over the phone or something, and they would type it in, and then you'd get connected. Yeah, so this is kind of like that, but simpler to use once it's set up, but it was a bit of a game to get set up. So VNC is a VNC server that speaks the Wayland protocol, and that bit's quite simple. You just run VNC, and then you can connect to it from any VNC client over the usual VNC port, and everything's working swimmingly. So that was easy, and it's got some options to say which display to connect to. So long story short, I have a thing that figures out what the primary display is, and it binds to that. And that's for things like if you connect to a machine remotely and it's locked, you can see the lock screen and you can unlock it and log in. As opposed to if you connect to some random screen, you can't get to the unlocker. So that's why I bind it to the primary display. And then this is not like VNC as I remember it, because VNC as I remember it, it was slow, it didn't have enough colours, it didn't render properly, it was just all round abysmal. And that's what my enduring memory of VNC is and has been for many years, and I've not bothered trying anything VNC related. But this is glorious Technicolor. It works on that widescreen monitor that you mentioned earlier, and I can connect to it from my phone, and it will do zooming and resizing and all of the things you'd expect to do.
It's going to need to do zooming on it.
Right.
Like, what is it, a 21, 31? What size is that?
I think display. It's a 29-inch ultra wide, that one in the office. Yeah. Anyway, it works, and it will do panning as well, so it'll keep the resolution and you can pan around the whole thing. So all that's all fine. But then it was like, how do I connect to it over a browser? So there's a project called No VNC, which is an HTML5 VNC client. So I install that, and you tell it to connect to the VNC port on the machine, and you connect to the URL it serves and you connect.
I'm actually very familiar with No VNC because of the aforementioned containerized development environment. One of the things that we do is we run automated Selenium tests in a browser in a container, and that container is running running VNC and No VNC, so you can connect to it in your browser and then connect into the VNC session. So then you can actually watch the browser doing its whizzy things automatically, but in your browser.
Yeah. And the No VNC client is really nice. It's got little pop-out controls to control the zooming of the screen, whether you want to full screen it, copy and paste tools, all of the things you'd expect. Nicely designed. Runs really well, even on massive displays. I was very happy with that. And then this is where it all sort of came crashing down. I just thought, I'll generate these super secure RSA certificates, and I'll put an RSA certificate on the server, and I'll have the other side of the key for me, and I'll authenticate with these keys. And could I get that to work? No. And I thought that I was an idiot. And there are occasions when I am an idiot and I can't get things working because I don't know how to do it.
Confirmed.
But on this occasion, I was a different kind of idiot in that I didn't realize that that nature of authentication just simply cannot be supported by the browsers. So you can't use these higher order authentication mechanisms. So the only authentication mechanism that was available was plain text password. So you get the password prompt, but it sends it over the network in plain text. So basically, tell me. And this I was not happy about. So I had a little think, and this is where I discovered that you can serve no VNC over a WebSocket. So I changed things up a little bit. Instead of serving no VNC over an HTTP port, I served it over a WebSocket and had Caddy proxy that WebSocket to a URL. And the glorious thing about Caddy is that it will seamlessly integrate with your tailnet and automatically generate you Let's Encrypt certificates for any address on your tailnet. So now the solution was, I don't care that the password passes over plain text because it only gets passed around over the Tailscale VPN mesh. So this is a bit like doing password authentication over SSH at that point. The password might be in the clear, but the connection is encrypted. So this is the solution now. So all it means is that as long as I'm on my tailnet, I can connect to any of my machines that have this WaveVNC, mishmash of components running, and I can connect to any of them from a browser.
I feel inadequate because in my environment, I would say when I'm traveling and a member of the family says, I can't watch Netflix or whatever it is they're trying to do, I'd say, wait until I get home. I feel you're putting in a lot more effort here than I ever would. Because having tried any of these VNC solutions, I end up connecting. Yeah, I figure out a solution that connects, and then I get ultimately frustrated at the speed of it, or them taking control of the mouse while I'm trying to help them. And then I just disconnect and say, I'll wait till I get home anyway. So I figure, why not just shortcut straight to the wait till I get home? Problem solved.
So I've only had 2 IT ultimatums since I've been married. The first is, on no account whatsoever will I lose photographs. Photographs will be backed up, and I will be able to make sure that all of the photographs we've ever taken are available. And in recent years, since my daughter's been in secondary school, the second requirement is we must be able to scan and print at all times. And these are the 2 things I'm on the hook for. And it was that second one that was the issue whilst I was away, that they weren't able to print the homework that needed to be submitted. So I needed to hop to it and do some tech support.
Printers, eh?
Yeah, I know. They have not improved in 40 years, I can tell you that.
I feel like there's a service here that someone could do where they drop ship a printer anywhere on the, it's an Amazon thing, isn't it? Just like have these brother printers in a big pile in a warehouse, and whenever any member of the family says, I can't print to the printer, you just say, press this button, and a brother printer will drop from the sky and you'll be able to print, and then my problem is solved and I get a spare printer. Yeah. What could go wrong?
I mean, it's not the cost of the printer that's the expensive thing. They'll probably leave you the printer but take the ink cartridges.
Yeah. It's a winning situation.